You ever have one of those moments where time doesn't just stop, it taps you on the shoulder, slaps you in the face, and says, "Hey buddy, your life's about to detour into a dumpster fire?" Mine came at exactly 7:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. The kind of ordinary evening where the biggest drama was a red pen leaking on a stack of poorly written sophomore essays about of mice and men. I was still wearing my old corduroy blazer, the one my wife, Monica, said made me look like a sad professor in a canceled British detective show. She was in the kitchen, methodically hacking away at vegetables like she was auditioning for a slasher film, The Salad Bar Butcher. And then the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a tall, gangly young man staring at me like he'd practiced this moment in a mirror too many times. Same dark hair as mine, eyes that held a quiet storm. "Mr. Keller?" His voice cracked. Nervous, but trying. "That's me," I said. He stuck out a hand. "I'm Eli. Eli Brenner. I think. I'm your son. Now, I've been a high school teacher for 20 years. I've seen kids try to convince me that a raccoon ate their homework, or that gravity is just a suggestion. But this was Olympic-level curveball. Eli Brenner. "Jessica Brenner?" I asked, already feeling the floor pull a Houdini under me. "University of Michigan," he said. "You were a transfer the semester after." She tried to tell you. I swear, the only thing keeping me upright was the doorknob digging into my palm. I was about to ask a dozen logical questions when Monica appeared behind me, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Who is it?" I didn't look back. "Monica, this is Eli. He says he's my son." The towel hit the floor. It was like watching a kaleidoscope of rage, disbelief, and precision-engineered fury cross Monica's face. She didn't yell. Not yet. That was scarier. "Are you serious?" she asked, voice already frosted over. "If it's even true," I stammered. Eli didn't miss a beat. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a photo. Me in college. Arm around Jessica. Same cocky smile I used to think looked charming, now just made me want to punch my past self. "I've been trying to find you for years," he said. "Where's your mother?" I asked. "Cancer. Last year." Boom. That one landed somewhere below my lungs. "She wanted me to find you. Before it was too late." That was when Monica snapped. "You have a grown son? And he just shows up on our doorstep. What else are you hiding, Adam?" "I didn't know," I said. "Monica, I swear on everything, I had no clue." "Don't lie to me," she said, already halfway to the phone. "Get out." And just like that, 20 years of marriage boiled down to 30 minutes and a partially zipped suitcase. I checked into a Holiday Inn that night, alone, humiliated, and thoroughly haunted by a kid who had my chin and Jessica's eyes. You'd think that'd be the twist, right? Surprise son. Family meltdown. Redemption arc pending. But here's the kicker. That was just the opening act. What came next wasn't about Eli, or even Jessica. It was about Monica. Because while I was trying to figure out how to be a dad to a kid I never knew I had, Monica was busy rewriting her version of our story, one drink, one text message, and one lie at a time. And let me tell you, my revenge? It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was surgical. And it started the moment I realized I wasn't the only one keeping secrets in that house. I didn't sleep much that night at the Holiday Inn. The mattress was too soft, the mini fridge was humming like a caffeinated bee, and my thoughts were playing bumper cars with my sanity. Somewhere between my third granola bar and the 2:13 a.m. rerun of Storage Wars, I started really thinking about Monica. See, here's the thing. If anyone ever had a PhD in moral high ground, it was her. Always the one to remind me when I left a dish in the sink, or when I didn't emotionally participate in our Christmas party planning. And yet, something about the way she reacted, it was too sharp, too personal. Like she wasn't just mad, I'd threatened something she thought was safely hidden. And that's when I remembered it. Her second phone. It was a little thing. A burner phone, supposedly for emergencies only, ever since her mother had that health scare 3 years ago. Except her mother had since recovered and had learned how to text. Monica never used that phone in front of me. She kept it in her nightstand drawer, wedged between a lavender-scented heating pad and the divorce papers she once downloaded as a joke. By noon the next day, I was back in the house while she was out, probably with her sister, or her lawyer, or both. I didn't have much time. I walked into our bedroom with the calm efficiency of a man on the verge of becoming either Sherlock Holmes or an inmate. Drawer. Right side. Phone still there. Dead, of course. But I had enough spare chargers to run a Best Buy. It powered on in silence. No password. Which told me one of two things. Either Monica was extremely confident in my stupidity or she wasn't hiding much. Turns out, she was. The first text that popped up was from a name I didn't recognize, Nico. You don't forget a name like that. Had a dream about you last night. Remind me to tell you over drinks. Drinks? Next text. Can't believe you wore that dress again. You know what it does to me. And then this one, timestamped 11:42 p.m. 2 nights ago. He home yet? You want me to park down the street again? My hand didn't shake. I didn't yell or throw the phone or punch the wall like a budget action hero. No, I just sat down. Slowly, carefully, the way someone does when the scaffolding around their life has finally collapsed and all they're left with is a view of the wreckage. That night, I didn't tell her I knew. When she came home, she looked me in the eye and asked, "Did you and your son have a good talk?" She said it like the word son tasted like vinegar. I said, "Yeah, he's a good kid." Monica nodded, set her keys down, and poured herself a glass of wine like it was any other Tuesday. Not a twitch, not a flicker of guilt. Just the calm breeze of a woman who believed she was still ahead on the scoreboard. But I'd seen the playbook now. And here's the problem with people like Monica. They get so used to playing puppet master, they forget some puppets grow scissors. I smiled that night. I made dinner. I even opened her favorite bottle of Cabernet, the one we were saving for something special. Because I had just become something she never expected. A man with a plan. It's funny how quickly "I have a son" goes from earth-shattering revelation to "I should probably pick up extra eggs for breakfast." Turns out, Eli liked his over-medium with a side of cynicism. Kid was more like me than I wanted to admit. We met again that Thursday. Diner on 7th Street, the kind with cracked leather booths and a waitress named Deb who calls everyone sweetheart, whether they're 9 or 90. He slid into the seat across from me wearing a hoodie and that look you get when you're trying not to care too hard. I offered a half smile. "You came," I said. He shrugged. "You promised pancakes." We didn't talk about Monica. Not right away. We talked about Jessica, his mom. About how she was brilliant, stubborn, and had a weird love for old kung fu movies. I told him I remembered that. He nodded like that was all he needed to know I hadn't been a total ghost. But then, halfway through his hash browns, Eli leaned in and said something that nearly made me drop my fork. "I've met her." "Who?" I asked. "Monica. A few times. Before I knew you were." "Well, you?" I froze. "She volunteers at the downtown museum sometimes, right?" he continued. "I interned there for a summer. She helped organize a gala. Name tag said Monica Keller." My stomach turned. She was friendly, kind of polished. But one night, I saw her outside after an event. She was with some guy. "Not you." That pulled me out of my coffee fog. "What kind of guy?" He thought for a second. "Tall. Tan. Pretty sure he said his name was Nico." "Nico." My blood turned to granite. She was laughing. Flirty. He kissed her neck while she checked her phone. Honestly, I figured they were married. Of course he did. Of course he did. I stared at my hands, still clutching the coffee cup like it might keep me grounded. Monica hadn't just made a mistake. She'd built a life in parallel, quietly, deliberately, like a magician sawing a man in half, except both halves were real. "She ever mentioned him to you?" Eli asked. "No," I said slowly. "But I think I've met him too. Just didn't know it at the time." The rest of breakfast was a blur. Eli asked about my favorite books, my worst haircut, whether I'd always been this uptight. He made me laugh, which felt strange. Like my body forgot how. But I couldn't unhear what he told me. Because now I had two things. A name. And a witness. I dropped him back at the Holiday Inn with a promise to see him again soon. As he got out of the car, he turned and said, "I'm glad I found you, by the way. Even if it's messy." "Me too, kid," I replied. Messy's just a different kind of honest. And with that, I drove home, not to argue, not to plead, but to get organized. Because if Monica wanted to rewrite the story of our life, I was going to make sure I wrote the ending. Nico. Even the name felt like it was trying too hard. Like a man who orders sparkling water and calls it bubbly without irony. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't start with the obvious. It starts in whispers, glances, changes in routine so small you don't even register them until you're staring at 2 wine glasses on the counter and 1 lipstick you've never seen before. It starts with gut feelings you ignore because love trains you to trust, and trust is often just love wearing a blindfold. And now, thanks to Eli, I had a whisper with a name. So I followed it. Not in the literal, trench coat and binoculars kind of way. I didn't stake out buildings or tap phones. I had something better. Paper, emails, volunteer schedules, receipts, social media tags, digital footprints. The quiet trail people leave behind when they forget the internet is a snitch with a perfect memory. I started with the museum. Monica had been volunteering at the Riverside Arts and Culture Museum for about 2 years, mostly handling fundraising events. I found the staff directory online. Nico wasn't listed, but a few gallery posts tagged in at NicoD_NYC. Odd, considering we lived nowhere near New York. The profile was private. No picture. But the username was linked to a guest list from a benefit event Monica co-chaired 6 months ago. It named him as Nico Devereux, philanthropy consultant. Because of course he was. I dug deeper. Another event. Another appearance. Monica's name kept popping up next to his on committee listings, seating charts, donation acknowledgments. This wasn't a fling. This was structured. Organized. This was a man who had become part of my wife's world in a way that was supposed to be mine. And suddenly, the second phone made even more sense. All those unexplained late nights. The silent dinners. The new perfume. The casual way she started calling me Adam instead of babe, like we were coworkers in a bad office romance. She had already replaced me. Socially. Emotionally. She was just too polite to inform me. By Friday, I had enough evidence to paint the outline. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't looking for an argument. I was building a case. Not for court, but for something much colder. Clarity. That night, Monica came home late again. Wore heels I hadn't seen in years. Makeup like she was auditioning for a new version of herself. Event, she said, dropping her clutch on the console table. How was it? I asked, as casually as a man holding a ticking time bomb. Fine. Same donors. Same bad hors d'oeuvres. She poured a glass of wine, didn't offer me one. Did you see Nico there? I asked. She paused for half a second. A beat just long enough to blink. Who? And there it was. The lie. The kind that comes so smoothly, it could have been rehearsed. Maybe it had been. I tilted my head. Nico Devereux. Works with the museum. She took a sip, slower than usual. Oh, him. Yeah, I think he was there. Why? No reason. Just heard his name. Thought it sounded familiar. I smiled. She didn't. Later that night, she fell asleep on the couch with a documentary playing. Some narration about endangered forests. I sat in the armchair across from her and watched her sleep, not with affection, but with the cool curiosity of someone watching the tide erase footprints on a beach. That was the woman I married. Same face. Same heartbeat. But the person behind those eyelids? A stranger with my last name. I remembered our first date. Thai food. She wore a navy dress and said she hated pad thai but ordered it anyway because it felt like the occasion called for it. I remembered our wedding. How she cried during her vows and whispered afterward, "Don't let me get bored, okay?" Bored. God, I should have heard it then. That wasn't a request. That was a warning label. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen island scrolling through my notes like a prosecutor reviewing closing arguments. I had timelines, names, places, even screenshots of texts from her second phone, pulled while she was in the shower 2 nights ago. One from 3 weeks ago stuck with me. I wish I could just disappear with you. That wasn't just infidelity. That was planning. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about performance. Monica had spent the last 6 months rehearsing an exit that left her looking like the elegant victim. The supportive wife whose husband had changed, drifted, or emotionally shut down. She would walk away with her head high, her image intact, maybe even throw in a line about growing separately if anyone asked. But I wasn't going to let her take the stage alone. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to write my own ending, one that she couldn't control. I started making calls. Not to friends. Not to lawyers. To people who owed me favors, colleagues who knew how to track public records, discreet services that Monica never dreamed I'd know how to use. I found out Nico had a wife. Had. She left him 6 months ago, right around the time he and Monica started planning museum galas like it was foreplay. Interesting. Then I found something else. A foundation. Devereux Futures. Small. Quiet. Nonprofit status under review for irregularities. Guess who was listed as one of the advisory members? Monica Keller. Well. The scandal wasn't just personal. It had a paper trail. And that's where I stopped the search. I had what I needed. The rest? That was for the grand finale. She thought I'd play the fool, that I'd leave with a whimper and a duffel bag. But what she forgot is, the quiet man watching from the corner is often the one who saw the whole show. And when he decides to speak, everyone listens. There's a particular calm that comes over a man once he decides he's done bleeding. Not angry, not broken, just done. And I was done. Done sitting quietly while Monica curated a narrative, trimming facts like hedges so the neighbors wouldn't ask questions. Done pretending our marriage was anything more than a press release. And more than anything, I was done being cast as the boring, dependable husband she outgrew. She didn't leave me. She replaced me. That distinction matters. Because replacements can be exposed. The gala was scheduled for Saturday evening. Fundraiser for the museum's new sculpture wing. Black tie. Catered. Live jazz trio flown in from Chicago. Monica had been planning it for months, co-chairing the event with, of course, one Mr. Nico Devereaux. It was all right there in the program. Monica Keller and Nico Devereaux cordially invite you to an evening of vision and legacy. The irony? Monica's real legacy was about to be unveiled. Now, I could have just shown up, made a scene, tossed some evidence on a white linen tablecloth and called it a day. But no. Too easy. Too loud. She expected theatrics. Drama. A pathetic, cheated-on husband making a mess in public. That's how she'd spin it. Adam's always been emotional. He just couldn't handle change. But that wasn't my show. Mine was quieter. Sharper. Surgical. I reached out to two people. First, Eli. I know this is a weird ask, I said over the phone. But how do you feel about free shrimp cocktails and watching rich people pretend they're artists? He chuckled. What's the catch? You wear a suit. You bring the envelope I gave you. You hand it to the guy on stage when I nod. A pause. And what's in the envelope? He asked. Monica's resume, I said. The real one. He didn't ask any more questions. Second call was to Lisa, Monica's former best friend, current Cold War enemy. The fallout between them had been vague, something about boundaries and misaligned energies, which is rich coming from a woman who misaligned her vows. Adam, she said when she picked up. I figured you were dead or divorced. Neither, I replied. But I'd like to invite you to a gala. Are you dying? Not yet. That got her attention. I laid out enough to pique her interest, not enough to spoil the surprise. She'd always had a taste for discomfort, especially when Monica was the one squirming. The night of the gala arrived with the usual flair, valet parking, people wearing tuxedos they couldn't spell, and enough faux humility to fill a yacht. The museum was lit like a movie set. Champagne flowed. Laughter echoed across the marbled floors. I arrived precisely 20 minutes late, right on schedule for someone whose presence was both expected and unwanted. Monica saw me the moment I stepped through the entrance. Her smile tightened just slightly, the kind of facial twitch you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. I was. She walked toward me, glass of white wine in hand, dress shimmering like something ripped from a department store daydream. You came, she said, voice syrupy. You invited me. Technically, the museum did. Technically, I replied, smiling. I watched her eyes flick down to my tie, to my shoes, looking for something to mock. She found nothing. I'd chosen everything with precision. You remember Eli? I said casually, nodding to where he stood by the refreshment table in a tailored suit, chatting with a docent about abstract sculpture like he was born into it. Monica's wineglass froze mid-sip. You brought our son, I corrected. She didn't respond, just nodded once, tightly. We stood in silence for a beat too long before she turned back to her hosting duties, floating toward the stage like a swan trying to outswim a current. I made my way around the room, smiled, shook hands, played the part of the proud, supportive husband. I even posed for a photo with the donors from Bank Midwest, knowing it'd end up on the event's Facebook page by morning. Then I waited. At 8:46 p.m., Monica took the stage to deliver her speech. She was poised, elegant, polished as ever. She thanked the board, the sponsors, the incredible support system at home. The irony was so thick I nearly choked on my champagne. And then, with a glowing smile, she introduced her co-chair. Nico Devereaux, she said, has been more than just a colleague in this journey. He's been a visionary partner. Applause. Cue. Nico, all tan skin and capped teeth, stepping up like a B-list bachelor auditioning for a TED Talk. That was my cue too. I caught Eli's eye. Nodded. He walked casually up the side steps to the stage with the envelope in hand. Passed it to the MC with the charm of a young man who knew exactly what was about to happen but had no reason to rush it. The MC blinked, glanced at the envelope. Then, with the reflexes of a man who once read a surprise donor announcement mid-show, opened it. There were 3 pages inside, printed in bold, clean font. A cover letter, a timeline, and a full transcript of Monica's text conversations with Nico. From the second phone, complete with dates, times, photos. Donor money spent on private dinners labeled as planning sessions. A $1,200 art transport fee that was actually a weekend stay at the Bellevue Resort. And one text from Nico that read, "If the museum only knew what you do with that mouth." The room went dead silent. The MC's face turned pale. Nico froze mid-smirk. Monica, she stood there, hands still hovering over the microphone, blinking like someone had pulled the fire alarm in her daydream. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just smiled. Not cruelly. Not arrogantly. Just peacefully. Because this wasn't revenge. This was a curtain call. 10 minutes later, Monica walked off the stage without a word. Her glassy expression cracked only once, when she passed me and whispered, "You think this makes you better than me?" "No," I said. "Just cleaner." You'd think betrayal unraveling in a room full of donors and crustless hors d'oeuvres would come with fireworks. Screaming. Maybe a wine glass hurled at my head for dramatic flair. But no. The real fallout? It's quieter than you'd expect. It lives in murmurs. In glances. In the way the room pretends nothing happened even as the air curdles with discomfort. After the envelope hit the stage, no one touched the mini quiches. The jazz trio kept playing Brave Souls, but even they dropped the tempo, like the cello felt shame. Nico? Gone. Vanished. Houdini'd his way out the moment Monica's face turned to stone. Last I saw of him was a tan blur at the fire exit, blazer flapping behind him like a villain in a soap opera. And Monica? Well, Monica stood still for a solid 30 seconds. Frozen. Blinkless. The kind of stillness only seen in people experiencing an emotional system crash. I watched her do the math. How much did I know? Who else had seen it? And what would survive the gossip tidal wave? Then she walked off stage like nothing happened. Graceful, I'll give her that. 10 years with me, and she still managed to act like I was the embarrassing part of our story. I didn't follow her. Didn't need to. I stood near the back, sipping from the world's most awkward glass of champagne, and listened to the guests fill in the blanks for themselves. He looked so familiar. I heard he was married. With kids. Didn't she say her husband was a teacher? No. He's a financial consultant, I think. Wait, wasn't she talking about Adam last month? The fundraiser guy? I didn't correct them. Let them wonder. Let them rewrite her version into whatever shape they needed. Because the thing about Monica was, she'd spent years curating a public image that was all charm, all polish, all control. And all I did was show them the footnotes. People don't like footnotes. They ruin the illusion. Later that night, back at the house, I walked in to find Silence waiting for me. She wasn't home yet. I could tell by the way the lamp in the hallway was still on. She always turned it off. Said it made the house feel too much like a lobby. Fitting, really. I sat down on the couch and waited. At 11:32 p.m., I heard the door. She walked in wearing her gala dress, and that look she wears when she's calculating an apology without admitting fault. "Is Eli still here?" she asked first. "Nope." "Where is he?" "At the diner. With a milkshake. Living his best life." She nodded, dropped her keys into the bowl by the door, then stood across the room from me, arms folded, mouth pinched. "You really went through my phone?" she asked, like that was the part that broke the sacred vow. "No," I said. "I went through your drawer. The phone came to me. Classy. Not as classy as claiming donor funds for hotel getaways, but hey, we all have our quirks." She sighed, sat down in the armchair across from me. That chair used to be mine, by the way. I let her have it after she said the couch made her hip stiff. Funny how many little things I gave away without realizing what I'd lost. "You embarrassed me tonight," she said, voice low. "No," I replied. "You embarrassed yourself." I just handed over the highlighter. She didn't respond. Instead, she did what Monica always did when backed into a corner. Tried to reframe the narrative. "You know we haven't been happy for years." There it was. The lifeline. The retroactive permission slip for everything she'd done. "We were struggling," she added. "I needed something different. You needed someone else." She blinked. "That's not fair." "Sure it is. Because I didn't go find someone else to fix what was broken. I stayed. I tried. You left. You just forgot to take your body with you." She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. Not in anger. Just done. "I'm not here to fight, Monica. I'm not here to drag it out. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one holding the consequences. She sat back, her expression twitching somewhere between exhaustion and offense. So what now? She asked. You want a divorce? I want a clean break, I said. You can keep the house. I already have a lease lined up. Furniture's being delivered next week. She blinked again. You already planned this? Yes. You knew I'd lie. I knew you'd protect the lie. That's stunned silence. That was the only real truth between us in months. I stood, grabbed the keys from the counter, and headed toward the door. As I opened it, she said, quietly, You didn't have to destroy me. I paused. No, I said, but you did. And then I left. The next morning, the email started. From the museum board. From her attorney. From Nico's former business partner, who apparently found the whole hotel expense thing extremely enlightening. I wasn't looking to ruin her life. I just wanted the truth to stand still long enough for her to look at it. But sometimes when you shine a light on mold, the structure comes down faster than you expect. As for me, I moved into a small apartment near downtown. 3rd floor. Too many stairs. The neighbor has a beagle that howls at ambulances, and the water pressure is a bit dramatic. But it's mine. The space, the silence, the coffee mug with just one toothbrush in the holder. Eli came by last weekend. We built a bookcase and ate takeout. He told me he's thinking about transferring to a college closer by. Says it'd be good to actually have a dad in his life. I didn't argue. And Monica? She texted last night. One line. You really planned it that far ahead? I didn't reply. Because yes, I did. Not to win. Not to hurt her. But because when someone tries to ghost you while you're still in the room, sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for both of you, is hand them the spotlight and step off the stage. A week passed. Then 2. Monica didn't show up at the apartment. Didn't beg. Didn't cry. Didn't storm in like some Lifetime movie villain, demanding her redemption arc. No. She did what she always did when she lost control. She disappeared and waited for someone else to fix the narrative. I didn't call. She didn't text again. There was no apology. Not for the lies, not for the second phone, and definitely not for Nico, who, last I checked, had gone radio silent and possibly fled to greener, less subpoena-filled pastures. And strangely, I didn't need the apology. I had something better, quiet, my own kind of peace. But there's something funny about getting your life back. It makes space. And space? It echoes. You start hearing everything again. Your own thoughts, your own wants. The stuff you buried beneath compromise and be patient. And she just needs time. Turns out, I missed myself. The version of me who used to read books without checking the clock. Who used to laugh at dumb sitcoms. Who used to enjoy silence instead of bracing for the next argument disguised as a check-in. That guy was still in there. And I was finally hearing him again. About a month after the gala, Monica reached out again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a letter, handwritten, sealed in a cream envelope, no return address. I found it wedged under my apartment door one evening after work. Inside was 4 pages of something that could have passed for vulnerability if I didn't know her better. I didn't expect you to do what you did. I thought you'd yell, cry, threaten, beg, anything but that. I'm not asking for us to go back. I just want to talk. Coffee. 1 hour. That's all. There was a time that letter would have gutted me. Now, it just felt late. Still, I agreed to meet. Call it closure. Call it curiosity. Call it the human impulse to walk back into the fire just to feel the heat one more time. We met at a cafe on 3rd, neutral ground. She wore sunglasses even though it was overcast. I wore indifference. Adam, she said, folding her hands like a job interview. You look good. Divorce suits me, I replied. And you look tired. Her mouth twisted like she couldn't decide whether to laugh or slap me. We talked. Politely. Flatly. Then she offered this. If we go to mediation, I'll keep your name clean in the press. Press? Turns out the museum scandal had spiraled further than I knew. Donors pulling out. Articles circulating. Investigations pending. And Monica, PR Princess of the Year, was looking to distance herself from the man who knew where all the skeletons were buried. She didn't want closure. She wanted containment. And that was when I knew, truly knew, there would never be a real apology. Not from her. Not the kind that came without strings. So I smiled. Thanks, I said. But my name doesn't need cleaning. It was never the one covered in dirt. It took 3 more weeks to finalize the divorce. We didn't fight. No custody, No kids, no house squabbles. Just signatures and silence. I kept one thing. The chair. You remember the one? My old chair from the living room. The one she took over like it had no memory. I reclaimed it. Hauled it up 3 flights of stairs myself. Tossed it in the corner of my new place like a trophy that meant nothing to anyone else but everything to me. The day the papers came through, I didn't celebrate. I went for a walk. Downtown. Alone. No destination. Just a man, free and unfinished. And you know what I felt? Lighter. Not like someone escaping something. Like someone returning to something. Like home wasn't a place or a person. It was a version of myself I hadn't visited in years. And I'd finally moved back in. Let me be clear about one thing. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about restraint. The cruelest revenge isn't shouting someone's sins from rooftops. It's letting them live inside them. Alone. Undisturbed. I didn't leak her texts to the media. I didn't call the museum board again. I didn't even warn Nico's next conquest. I simply let them have each other. You think justice is fire and brimstone? Try silence. Try watching someone who built their life on control suddenly realize you took yours back, and they can't spin it. Can't fix it. Can't even find a villain in the story anymore, because you walked out before the climax. That's what Monica never understood. I wasn't her opponent. I was her mirror. And when I shattered it, all she had left to face was herself. Now, some nights I sit in my chair with a book and a drink, and I laugh. Not because I'm bitter. Because I made it. Through the worst parts. Through the doubts and the noise and the ghost of a marriage that looked whole but was hollow. And I didn't burn it down. I outgrew it. And for anyone who's ever been left, lied to, or looked in the mirror wondering how you didn't see it sooner, here's your proof. You're not weak for staying. You're strong for leaving. And the silence you carry? That's not emptiness. That's peace with teeth.